All right, you may think that we are going to start with the Lindsay Lohan problem, but you would be wrong. You're going to have to wait for it. Your suspense is going to have to build. Anticipation. Can you stand it? Because the first thing we're going to talk about today is continuity. And the three criteria that make something continuous. And that first criteria is that f of x must, well, let's change this a little bit. For a function f of x to be continuous, at x equals c, f of c must be defined. In other words, it has to exist. Now, you may be wondering, how could that not work? Well, think about a function with a hole in it. There's c, this is f of x, right there, f of c, not defined, not continuous. Okay? Now, our second criteria for continuity is that we talked about left and right hand limits before. In order for a function to be continuous at a point c, the limit as x approaches c from the negative side of f of x has to equal the limit as x approaches c from the positive side of f of x. In other words, the limit must exist, right? And if you think about like a piecewise defined function, okay, there the limit doesn't exist, and that thing is clearly not continuous at c. Now, the third criteria. In order to be continuous, not only must the limit exist, but the limit as x approaches c of f of x must equal f of c. Okay? Now, again, I can tell you're probably wondering about that. But let's think about our function with a hole in it. Okay? Here's c. What if f of c was a point down here? Okay. Here, the limit exists. F of c is defined, but the limit doesn't equal f of c. It equals some other value up here, whatever you wish to call that. All right. Now, again, we want to stress this point that in order for the limit to exist, the right and left-hand limits have to be equal. Okay? Now, this is where the Mean Girls problem comes in. She is asked to find the limit, or they're both asked, the limit as x approaches 0 of the natural log of 1 minus x minus the sine of x over 1 minus the cosine squared of x. Okay. Now, if we let x equal 0, we get the natural log of 1, which is 0, minus the sine of 0, which is 0, over 1 minus the cosine of 0 squared. Well, that's 1. Again, we get 0 over 0. That tells us nothing. Now, the first girl guessed negative 1. How somebody came up with negative 1, I'll never know. Okay. we're looking at positive quantities top, numerator and denominator, any way you look at it. But in calculus, we'll learn a better way to deal with this, because to try and factor this thing out is not going to be fun. There's a method called L'Hopital's rule. It works right down for this. But now, using methods we have, if we graphed this puppy, okay, what we would see is that as x approaches 0, if we're coming from the negative side, it goes off towards positive infinity. And if it comes from the positive side, it goes off towards negative infinity as x approaches 0. Now, in the movie, she says, well, if the function doesn't approach anything, it doesn't exist. Well, that's not, I don't like that answer. That to me says, because I look at this and I say, well, now the limit as x approaches 0 from the negative side of this thing equals positive infinity. Okay? And the limit as x approaches 0 from the positive side of this thing equals negative infinity. Well, positive infinity is definitely something, and negative infinity is definitely something else, and they're not equal. So this limit does not exist because the right and left hand limits aren't equal. Bennett and Jenna cannot shake hands at 0, therefore the limit does not exist. Not because it doesn't approach anything. So, I think we've shown Lindsay Lohan does not really understand calculus, and somehow that's kind of comforting. Alright, so still interesting problem to work from, and she did get it right. So, good for her. Alright, well, that should get us up to the end of the day on Thursday. Friday, quiz day. Good luck. Hope you did well in Tennessee. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday, Bennett. Everyone else, I will see you tomorrow. Good night.